The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, residents of Easton, friends and neighbors. This is Bill Ames, the co-host of the Film Connection. Many of our viewers know, we like to interview residents of Easton and former residents of Easton and folks in basically the Hockomock towns who have some sort of interest in filmmaking or film production, either currently or in their past. We've had many fascinating interviews. And certainly my co-host, Pricilla Almquist Olson, is here, who will start the show off. She has been a stellar rock for keeping the Film Connection going all these years. So Pricilla, over to you.
Thank you, and welcome, Ben. So our guest today is Ben Del Guercio. Am I pronouncing that right?
Guercio.
Yeah, Del Guercio.
Guercio, yes.
Del Guercio.
Ben Del Guercio. And so I didn't know that you were a junior. Your first name is actually Lewis, right?
Yeah, I am. My father and I are both Lewis. I'm not a junior. We have different middle names.
I see. Okay. Well, you took your middle name, and it really suits you. So,
Thank you.
And speaking of your early beginnings, tell us, most kids who play with toy cars don't grow up to film the real ones, and that's part of what you do. So how did you first get into the very specific and exciting world of filming automotive commercials?
Filming automotive commercials. Well, I've been living in Los Angeles for about 15 years. I moved out there after I graduated from film school in Boston. And as most people do in the Los Angeles scene, you kind of float around and work where you can find work, and things kind of come to you as from one project to the next. So I started filming car commercials, I don't know, maybe 2021. I'd say I got to it based on COVID, really. Before COVID, I was running my own little company, producing a lot of content, commercial content that was online. But when COVID hit, the entire market fell out and the industry came to a halt. So not a lot of people were working, especially since the film industry was shut down. But about a couple months in, they started to open it up with a huge amount of restrictions. And, a lot of people weren't working because a lot of people had been working for a long time for some of these bigger companies working as employees and had built up a lot of unemployment time. So when the pandemic happened, they were able to stay home. And pretty quickly, my unemployment ran out and I had to get back to work. And so I was kind of some of the first people out there 2 months in to the COVID epidemic. And, we were triple masked and all the stuff. And what was good about it for me was the industry wasn't well staffed because there were a lot of people staying home. So I made a lot of new connections, kind of jump-started my independent producing career. I did a lot of music videos for a while, which is good fun work, but small budgets and a lot of creative needs. So, as you go from one project to the next, you're meeting people. And I met an executive producer who said, "Hey, I know this really great guy. He produces car commercials. He could probably use a producer like you." And that was 2021. I started working with the company Racing Cowboys. And ever since, the company's been picking up steam, shot for a lot of different brands. But yeah, I think that's how the industry mostly works is
So
you
Ben,
cruise through, you make connections.
yeah, so another question we would be, can you walk us through your role? When an auto company has, let's say, a new car, at what point do you get the call and what's the first thing you do?
Well, as the producer, my job is to usually bid the budgets, put together a line budget, and pitch that to our potential clients. when a car company decides they're going to put a new campaign together, they usually start by hiring an ad agency, which will plan the overall arcing structure of the ad over the course of maybe a year. And then on individual projects, they'll hire production companies. And so I work for a production company. We'll have a bid with maybe three other production companies. And if the client likes our creative and our budget, then they'll award the project. And from there, everything starts moving forward.
Do you remember your first big break or major car commercial that you worked on? What was that experience like?
I think a good example would be we did a ad campaign for Ram for their new high-end truck, the RHO, which is like an off-roading vehicle. That was a really fun project. It was our one of our first projects over 500,000 for Racing Cowboys. So it was a big deal for us. And the client decided they were going to go big, and they got a big star for the commercial, Glenn Powell. And so, we're out in the middle of the Mojave Desert and the sand dunes in California with 60 people, 70 people on set, and airplanes flying over, and, eight trucks and camera cars, and, a major movie star in the front seat. And that was a fun day. That was probably the first day that it was like, yeah, we're doing big things here. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And as a producer, you've hired every single person on set. So you kind of like know everybody and what they do and where they came from. And to see that whole team to come together was a good moment.
So Ben, being in your 30s, you've seen a massive shift in camera technology. How have tools like drones and smaller, more powerful cameras changed what's possible in your field?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's really changed the game. It's democratized the game, as a lot of people like to say. You don't need to have all the money to get stuff done. One example that comes to mind is, usually our A camera on these commercials is on what we call a Russian arm or a Ukraine, which is basically a sports SUV like a Porsche with a giant 15-foot crane that comes off the top that supports the camera. And inside there, you've got a driver and a director of photography, an assistant camera, there's 8 people inside that car going 80 miles an hour alongside another car. And, minimum, that's going to cost you 15 to 20 grand a day just to have that A camera setup. But you have the best cameras in the world with all the people controlling all the things. On a smaller budget that we had, maybe a couple weeks later, we didn't have all that money for the major car. So we had to go with just a drone as our main camera for shooting. And, one of these drones, you can get all that done for, maybe under $2,000, and 2 people on the team and a small drone that you can buy commercially online. And the footage, a lot of times, it's really close. So, this type of drone technology specifically, and the camera's getting smaller and smaller in like GoPros and Insta360s, all these action cams that are out there looking so good. You can get really great results without having all the toys or without spending $500,000.
We were interviewing someone the other day, remember? They said that their cell phone was there's a certain case to be made to use a cell phone in terms of,
Sure.
I forget, I can't put the words to it, but it's like the Blair Witch Project, going out and, the camera jumping around a little bit and stuff like that. But the quality of the shot was very high, just on your
Of course, yeah.
Galaxy.
And they're making every year they make a dramatic leap in image quality in your phone. And, the picture quality you get out of your phone is maybe double, triple the quality of what you were seeing 10 years ago on a, semi-professional video camera. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, phones are great. And people make, Oscar-nominated films on their iPhones. So,
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
yeah.
So all the money I spent on all those cameras, all those years, nowadays you just get your Samsung Galaxy latest edition, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Well, and it's all relative, right? Like when we work on some of these projects with a $200,000 camera, with a lens that costs $100,000, with a DP who gets paid $5,000 a day, it looks really, really good on the newest stuff, you know? So there's obviously leaps and bounds difference between, the best cinema camera and your phone, but
Yeah.
it depends on what you're doing and what you need and who's operating it and all those things.
So being out in the desert makes a big difference in California, right? Because of the weather and no clouds in the sky and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, a lot of elements to fight through. Yeah, being out and shooting in the desert takes longer, it's harder, more things break. Um, but some of the images from, this commercial, just being out there, we could be in Abu Dhabi, like you can't even tell we're in California with endless sand dunes and, trucks jumping 15 feet in the air. So,
Yeah.
Okay, my turn. The cars and commercials that we see every day look so perfectly shiny and gorgeous. And what are the tricks of the trade on the scene that are done in order to make those cars look so perfect and appealing?
well, you've got your cinematography, which we've been talking a little bit about, some of the best photographers in the world, using some of the best cameras in the world, using some of the most interesting ways to support those cameras, whether it's the camera car or the drones or whatever. But there are a lot of tiers to the creative when you're on set. I could have five people from the agent, from the client, and another eight people from the agency. I could have 15 people in my video village who are all involved in the creativity of making this the best it can be. A lot of times, for example, the people that come from the client, the car people, will know this car looks better if we shoot it at a slightly lower angle with three quarters on the front. And those things really hold true. So this a lot of times the cinematographer and the creative agencies and the directors will work together to shoot these cars in the best light and in the best direction. And then of course use really great colorists in post. And that's usually where you get that pop, as a lot of us like to call it.
Well, so when some commercials have cars in the rain, driving in the rain and stuff like that, and puddles and things, you have to create those puddles, right? And have a rain machine or something, or do you just wait for the big day and go for it?
I mean, it all depends. If the commercial relies upon rain or relies upon a puddle, then you gotta have a plan to make it. Because especially in California, you're not gonna get a lot of rain days. But sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you get a free what we call wet down, where the whole road is wet. Because especially when you're shooting at night, it's really nice to have wet roads because you get a lot of reflection and a lot of color and light off the road. So for example, like, if we know we're going to be shooting at night in Detroit, we'll hire a wet down truck, a water truck. And so it'll be a big old truck with hundreds of gallons of water in it with a big hose. And, you show up right before they're going to shoot and they spray down the whole road. If it is a scene that calls for rain, you might have a rainmaker, which is, would connect to a truck like that and shoot rain up in the air. We try to, on our budgets, we try to stay away from, specifics that would say, hey, it needs to be raining or whatever. But we've definitely done a lot of stuff where it's like the Jeep needs to go through a river, and where we're shooting, there's not much of a river. And they're like, okay, well, if you bring in the truck and you dump some water here, then, we'll get a river.
So the rain machine, I guess when you think about it, that's right. It has to shoot the water up so that it can come down, rather than like having a helicopter up there or something, just to make the point.
Yeah, either that or, you'll build some sort of arc,
Yeah.
and the arc will, hoses will go up into the arc and drizzle down. But that can get really difficult for cars because cars tend to like to go places. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay, my turn.
Sure.
One of the most iconic shots is a car cruising down a beautiful, empty, winding road. What are the logistics of finding and filming a location like that? Do you actually get to shut down a whole mountain pass?
Yeah, so it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing anything that's outside of the law, then you need to get a closed road. So I'll work with in the early stages. First, we'll work with a location manager. So we'll have some creative that'll say, windy road, like you said, looks like this, and they'll have some example images. I'll go to a location manager. I'll say, you know, I need some roads that might look like this. We may have experience in the area and already know some roads, and we'll go out there and scout it. So it'd be like me, the director, maybe the location manager. We'll go out early, shoot roads with the camera, and bring back stills and pitch those to the client. The client likes it. I contact the local municipality and I get a film permit. And then if we're doing anything, which we usually are, outside of the rules of the road, then we'll have to contact the police and hire police to be what we call intermittent traffic control. So they'll basically know the grid that we've permitted, which might be a winding road with a S curve with a an intersection at the end. And our plan is to come down the road really fast and drift through the intersection. So the police will be on the radios with the director and the stunt drivers, and they will know the areas that need to be locked off. And when we're 100% ready to go, we radio the cops. The cops shut down the road. Basically like you're at a construction site, they stop the traffic. We come through, we do our pass. Maybe we get two takes, and then we open up the road. So we'll close the road for intermittent 5-minute periods, do our thing, open it up for 10 minutes as we reset and move all the traffic through, and then reshoot. So we were just doing that in Detroit, and that was really fun. We
So do
had
you have to pay the police department to get extra to get those
yeah,
people there?
yeah. So we pay the fee for the police, the labor, and then also for their vehicles. So whether they're police cars or, so yeah, we basically rent the off-duty police officers from the city, and then they come in full uniform with their lights. So we're usually getting a lit procession through some place. And we were in Detroit. We were coming through the main rotary in the center of Detroit and doing, donut burnouts all the way around this thing. And we have 15 production assistants blocking off all the sidewalks so you don't get random people walking into the sidewalk. And then, I think we had 6 police officers on that shoot.
Well,
How much of what you see is real driving versus computer generated imagery, CGI? Has that balance shifted dramatically in the last few years?
It's definitely shifting. CGI in general is not very good at cars, or sorry, AI is not very good at cars. CGI is, we can create a lot of great cars in movies and such, but it's not cheap.
tell
So
Ben,
our
Ben,
work,
Ben, quickly tell the viewers what CGI means.
computer generated imagery. So, Star Wars and
Yeah.
zing zangs and zip zorps.
Sorry.
But yeah, in our industry, I think a lot of what's still done is real cars on real streets. One, because it's actually in a lot of ways cheaper than producing really high-end CGI that people are going to want to buy. But also in a commercial, it's about selling something that's real. So if you have a car on the road and it's CGI and it's almost perfect, it's so good, but it's almost perfect, and your eye can discern that it's not real, that's going to lessen the impact of the wanting to buy the car. So for us, everything we do is real cars on real streets. The only post-production CGI stuff we do is, cleanups. So we'll be driving through a city. There's a lot of logos we can't use. There's maybe other cars that we don't want in the shot. We'll do a lot of removal in post, but we don't do very much computer generated cars. That's for sure. And maybe that's what's coming. That's the fear in a lot of commercial industries that AI is coming. And if, a client can skip the ad agency and the production company by saying, hey, AI, make the car do this, then yeah, that could be really scary. But we're not quite there yet.
So, Ben, who was actually driving those cars in the high performance type shots? Are they professional stunt drivers? Have you had any close calls in your experience?
Yeah, so we work with all union professional stunt drivers. Most of the car companies are SAG, Screen Actors Guild, compliant, so they work with all union actors, which tend to be the best actors in the world. And within the SAG, there are stunt drivers. So we work with all union stunt drivers. So they're, there's this small community of them that are maybe 10 to 20 who do all of the car commercials, do all the movies. So yeah, we work with some of the best drivers in the world. Like for example, one of our drivers is like a, I don't know, 8-time world champion drifting racer. And he's the guy that, if you want to do 360 donuts while going 100 miles an hour down the LA Bridge, that's your guy.
Yeah.
Uh, his
Well,
name's Samuel Hubinet. And he was driving with us on the Ram commercial that I was talking about earlier. And just a little story about, close call. And we had this brand new truck, this Ram RHO, and it was the only one in the world. Sometimes when we're shooting these videos, we have the only car that exists because they haven't put them into production yet. It's a pre-production model. And so you kind of have to be a little bit careful with them because if you break it halfway through the shoot, then that's the only one. So, this truck is an off-roading truck. They want to show it. So the idea was the last shot of the commercial, this thing launches into the air. And so, we had shot the whole commercial. We're in the very last shot of the very last day. And we said, hey, how do we feel about jumping this thing? And the client was like, go for it. And we're like, well, what if we break it? They're like, well, we're finished the shoot, so break it. So our stunt guy's like, Sam's like, oh, well, I'm going to send it. And we're like, well, go easy, go easy. So they launch off this dune and he probably gets 5 feet of air and lands nicely. And we're like, oh, that's great. And he was like, okay, I want to go big. I'm like, okay, go ahead, go big. The guy launches off the thing and goes 15 feet through the air and comes down on the nose. And we see boom, and the whole airbag goes off. And he's on radio, right? And he slouches down to the side. We're on the radio and we're like, Sam, are you okay? And there's no answer. We're like, oh no, man down, send the medic. And all of a sudden we see his head pop up and he's like, I got it. I lost my walkie. I'm okay.
that's a
Got
great.
out of the car and everybody was fine. We broke the car, but it was the last shot of the day, the last shoot. So
So,
everything was okay. It ended up being the last shot of the commercial and everyone loved it. So
so the tell us about the stunt driver. They have a stunt school they go to, or they have to go in a parking lot, big parking lot, and demonstrate to the union that they can do wheelies and stuff like that, or is it just sort of?
there's probably there are schools and training and certifications, but the guys that we work with tend to come from very prominent racing backgrounds, so they were generally known from the beginning as exceptional drivers. So for them, it was really just about probably getting a few commercials and then getting their card and then reputation precedes you. Every commercial we do, I have to submit a full resume of each driver to our insurance company to be like, yeah, we're going to do this stuff. And they're like, well, who's going to do this stuff? And we're like, well, these professional union guys are going to do this stuff. And they're like, well, what have they done? And so it's almost harder to get the approval from the insurance company than it is from anybody else.
Interesting. Well, I remember the chase. I remember was in the French Connection. Remember under the elevated in Manhattan with Gene Hackman. I mean that was unbelievable, and it didn't look like they'd cut it at all. I mean, it looks like the
Real
whole
cars
thing
going real fast.
Yeah, because you don't if you could do it all in one take. I mean, it makes a bigger impression on the viewer. Not that anybody cares that much, but it sort of puts it over the top. Do you remember that, Priscilla?
Yeah.
French Connection?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What
That's
was his name?
that's
Popeye?
That's our generation.
So, okay. So,
So my turn.
your turn.
Okay. Can you tell us about the most technically challenging shot you ever had and what made it so difficult?
How
Are
about,
we talking in car commercials?
how about the French and Indian War?
No cars in that one.
Sneakers. There were sneakers.
On our recent commercial, we just did a commercial for the new Dodge Chargers in Detroit that are coming out. And we permitted a location in Detroit that was the original Model T Ford factory. So in the 20s, they were building all the new Model T Fords there. Incredibly impressive factory. You walk in there, it's beautiful, a modern marvel. And it's all abandoned now and not really used. So we've rented the location, and we were going to drive the cars through this pillared um, factory, and there was a lot of all these pillars filling the whole factory. So he wanted the cars to drift through these pillars while the camera came through the ceiling, dive bombed down, and then went through the pillars to follow them. And I think we spent 3 or 4 hours just setting the shot up, waiting for the light to be right, putting atmosphere out, practicing. But yeah, in the end, when we did it, it was basically the guy who's running the drone is wearing goggles. It's a POV setup, so he's watching the camera of this drone and can't even see where the drone is, and he's flying this incredibly intricate pattern through all these cement pillars while another car is doing drifting turns through the pillars. It was very difficult and tricky and risky, but it all came together and it made for some of the best shots in the commercial.
So if I was watching TV, are they running that commercial now?
That was technically what we call a reveal video. So they basically make these online living commercials to be like the new charger. And so when you go on YouTube, you can find it there. I have seen a lot. I have seen a lot of pieces of it on digital media. So I'll be watching Hulu or Netflix or something, and we'll see parts of our ad pop up.
Wow. Ben, one of the most difficult things is the sound. Sound is so important. The roar of the engine or the quiet hum of the EV. How much of that sound is captured live versus being designated and added in post-production?
Depends on the production. We use things for some luxury car vehicles, and they purr. So in post, if the brand has a lot of stock sounds of that song that car, then they'll use those a lot of times to beef it up. On this most recent commercial with Dodge, these Chargers are known for their sound. These are
What's
deep-throated
happening?
muscle American muscle cars. And their cult following is very particular about the way they sound. So especially now, they were putting out a brand new generation. The sound was very, very
Wait
important.
finishes.
Engineers had spent a long time making sure this thing sounded right. So it was very important to the client that we got a very good sound capture
Sound.
on that day,
The question
and
sound.
he would
Sound is the
basically
problem.
capture all the sound of these vehicles doing everything. And we had like 4 or 5 vehicles, so it was so important. We would take one vehicle and one stunt driver on a day and send them out for 2 or 3 hours with just the sound guy and have them push the car to every angle, get the tires, get the engine, get the exhaust. So in the end, the editor has this whole catalog of extra sounds to add to shots that are very accurate and flattering to the vehicle.
Currently now, in a massive shift to electric vehicles. And the question is, how does that change the story that you're telling? Is it harder to make a silent vehicle seem powerful and exciting on screen?
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, I think with the advent of electric cars in commercial advertising, it 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 depends on what you're trying to get out of the ad. Like I was saying before, if it's some luxury brand, and they're putting out like a comfortable electric vehicle, then the light whir is something that might be a selling point. Whereas when you're trying to sell Dodge Chargers that are electric, that's a little more tricky because the people that you're selling it to want the characteristics of the gasoline powered car. They weren't asking for electric. So you're trying to sell, it's a harder sell. And I think with like the electric vehicles, the electric chargers, it was like, well, this is faster than any of the other chargers we ever put out. And that's not necessarily what that clientele wants. So, it can be really tricky when you're trying to sell a Detroit muscle car that's electric. But maybe it's not so tricky when you're trying to sell, a luxury BMW that's just supposed to be comfortable and quiet.
Okay, so Ben, my turn here. Different brands have different identities: luxury, rugged, family friendly. How do you translate a brand's personality into visual language and camera work?
Hmm. Well, that's not an easy thing to do, and that's why good commercial directors get paid a lot of money. Um, I think it comes down to the a lot of it comes down to the pre-production, to the creative planning. Some of these commercials go through three iterations of storyboards before we shoot a single frame. Um, so yeah, I think it's really a conversation between the brand, the creatives, and the cinematographer, um, and then using, the huge swath of film language that's been developed over, 150 years to give these inanimate objects personality. It's not easy, and I don't claim to know how to do it, but I sure do like supporting people who do.
Good answer. I was just thinking about SUVs versus Jeeps versus Dodge trucks. I mean, they're all three different personalities, right? I mean, that sort of thing. And
Like for example, the personality of the Jeep is the Explorer, right? Like, and a lot of brands try to get into that, but Jeep owns it really with being like, you can go anywhere in this thing. And, you see a lot of people with their mall crawlers, like their Jeeps that they don't really go anywhere with. So, you kind of get a taste in your mouth about what a Jeep might be. But then you're out there in the field and you're shooting something in Moab, and you get up to a wall and the guy's like, drive that Jeep up that wall, and you're just like, okay. It just goes up the wall. So that's something that's always what Jeep is selling. Jeep is always selling that they're the ones that can do all the stuff and can take you and can give you that freedom, and I think almost every frame they put together in a Jeep Wrangler commercial is about that. Even if they're on the street, like it's every shot is designed to seem like it's climbing a mountain, whether or not the viewer is gonna climb a mountain ever.
yeah.
So, Ben, in your personal opinion, what is the most important element that makes a car commercial really effective?
I'd say the thing that makes a car commercial the most effective is editing. Um, I've seen a lot of projects that were shot really well, that had a huge amount of footage, and the edit comes back and it just feels flat. It doesn't feel like it has personality. It just doesn't feel like what we got to see happen. And there'll be times when you come away from a shoot and you're like, we didn't get that much great stuff. And then you see the first edit and it's amazing. And you're like, wow, that works. So I think everything in every form of filmmaking, commercial especially, lives and dies in the editing room. You make one movie in the field and you make another movie in the editing room. And without a good editor that really understands what needs to, like you were saying, what this commercial needs to emote, what personality this car needs to have, I think a lot of that comes in post production.
Do you work with specific editors, or are they pretty much your production company comes up with them, or how do you choose an editor?
Surprisingly enough, a lot of times the post is bid separately than the production. So, a lot of times we'll put together a creative and post bid or a creative and monetary bid for the production, but then we'll also put together the same for post production for the edit. So sometimes we have it all in house and we shoot it and we edit it, and sometimes we just shoot it. Sometimes we shoot it and don't edit it, and then somebody else edits it and the client doesn't like it and they come back and we edit it. So, um, we do have an in-house editor who is absolutely fantastic. She just kills it every time we give her something to do, and that's always great for us because there's more profit. But when it gets outsourced to a good editing house, that can be really nice too, because then you walk away on the final day and you're like, well, that was good. We did a great job. It's somebody else's responsibility now to bring this to fruition.
So you do do you do a rough cut first before you get into the final edit to make sure the commercials, make sure the client likes the idea, or do you go full stop and then send it to them?
Definitely in approval stages. Contractually, there'll be a certain amount of edits. So, they'll say 2 or 3 revisions. So the first one should be pretty rough, as there will definitely be notes. The second one, maybe you hit it. Maybe it's by the third that you get everything right. Sometimes they need to contract additional edits. Um, so yeah, I mean, it depends on the project.
So when you're filming a car going up down a mountain pass or something, do you keep that in mind that you might need alternate shot angles or something in case the client balks?
Sure, sure. Especially, the director I work with right now, his name's Nikolai Elu, and basically he loves to shoot. So, there might be 3 shots on our client shot list that basically came in and said we need these 3 shots, and we'll try to shoot 6 or 10. Obviously, we'll focus the most on those, but then, we try to get as good coverage as we can so that um, there's always an option because you need it.
So do you have like a storyboard? You sit around a table and plan it out, or do you get handed it by the ad company? Or so can you create these commercials yourself, basically the visual piece in terms of
I mean, it depends on the ad agency. So sometimes the ad agency will have something already really specific put together and it's interpreted by our director, or sometimes the ad agency will just come to us with a generalized concept that then is really fleshed out by our director. So I'd say it's usually that way. It's usually the latter, that there'll be some ideas, some visual references, usually a lot of visual references from other car commercials or movies and so on and so forth. And then our director will work with a storyboard artist to say, all right, I'm thinking this with this angle and the car goes like this. And then that'll get drawn together. We'll share that with the client. They may have some notes, we adjust. They may have some notes, we adjust. Like we just did a commercial with KFC and F1 the movie, where the car drives through an F1 car drives through a KFC drive-through and gets their chicken, and it was supposed to intercut with scenes from the movie. So really, we only needed to shoot 3 shots to make this work. But we shot for a whole day and shot 20 shots, and that allowed them a lot of freedom in post to not only have one version, but then 5 versions that can go on all different times on Instagram and on TV and so on and so forth. So
makes me think of the Blues Brothers, the opening scene, where they drive through the Kmart.
yep.
They really invented that whole concept, right? The car going in. So Priscilla, is it your time for your question or mine?
It is. So Ben, how has your job changed the way you look at movies, especially with these car chases and big action scenes? Can you still get lost in the story, or do you become very critical about those car scenes, the chasing each other?
Yeah, I mean, maybe with my experience, maybe the illusion of disbelief is a little harder to get to, but it's always there. So when I'm watching a great car chase scene, um, that's really well done, I'm gonna fall right into it with the rest of the audience, and I'm not gonna see the edits. I'm not gonna see the camera angles. I'm just gonna be pulled in by the emotions of the shots. But that being said, on a second watch, all I can see is money. All I can see is the crowd. All I can see is the extras. I'm like, oh my God, how many people and who had to organize those guys? And man, they must have needed a couple of different toilets for that. And oh man, the wet down on that street must have been ridiculous. And oh shoot, there's so much traffic on that New York street. Like, I can't imagine how hard it was to shut that down and how long So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not necessarily ruining the fun. It's a little more like, the curtains pulled back and I can maybe it's the opposite of like losing respect for things and you gain a lot more respect. When you were when you were younger and you were more oblivious to how the things that you saw got made, you could have a lot of criticism and be like, why the heck would anyone make the decision to do that? That's a bad filmmaking decision. But then when you start making these things, you realize not every day of the shoot is this perfect day where everyone's choosing what the best case scenario is going to be. Every day is a battle with a million problems that we're trying to overcome. So a lot of the decisions that get made are really just the best of a worst case scenario. So I think now in doing it and experiencing what it's like to try to bring a creative thing to fruition when you see it done well or even done poorly in the movies or in commercials, you still like, I feel like I have more understanding and more sympathy for things that are done poorly because you understand that even making something poorly is difficult. So,
Yeah, well, that's those car chases like in San Francisco when they went down that twisty road, the famous road in San Francisco. I mean, you wonder how they could do that in one take. But anyhow, we digress. But Ben, we have to ask, after all day filming the newest and best cars in the market, what do you personally drive?
about
There we go. Great. So if you had to rent a car, let's say, just to keep the question going here, do you have
if I had to
a
rent, it
favorite?
depends on where are we going, what are we doing. If we're gonna cruise down the PCH on the beautiful coastal highway and 75-degree weather, I'll take my little two-seat, my old two-seat Honda S2000 from 2001. That's a great little rear drive roadster. If we're gonna do some off-roading, then hand me a Jeep Wrangler because nothing can climb like that. And if we're going to, I don't know, if we're gonna just cruise around in a day-to-day thing, maybe I want something that's really gas friendly. I think I've really been into the plug-in hybrids, I think it's really hard to fully commit to a fully electric car these days with infrastructure changing and, especially if you have to get to places like me out in the middle of the desert, like having an electric car is not very practical. But if I have something that's got 90 miles or 100 miles of range for a plug-in and then it clicks over into gas, that's really the best of both worlds, I think. So, Jeep came out with a Wrangler that's kind of cool that can do that. But I don't know, like the plug-in Prius is a great car.
Okay, so what's a common misconception that people have about your job?
I'd say a common misconception about producing television or commercials or movies is that it's a lot of fun all the time. Uh, I've done a lot of different jobs, and there's not much that gets more stressful than being in the field the day before or the day of a shoot that's got a lot of problems. It can be pull your hair out type stuff. And the industry itself can be very stressful, and people can be very unkind. But I find that I've landed in a place where I feel very lucky because the team that I work with is a great team that cares about people and people first. So, um, I'd say it's a hard job, but when you do it with people that you appreciate and can trust, it's one of the best jobs.
So, is there any sort of dream car or type of vehicle you haven't filmed yet, but would love to do so?
Hmm. Um,
Ferrari or a Maserati or something? Or
all the most exotic cars are run by companies that have no money. Ugh.
really?
When you do one of those, it's like it's always on. You feel like you're making some student film. Everyone's cutting corners. Making commercials for the big mass brands is definitely the best way to make commercials. We did a commercial for the little electric Fiat 500, which looks like a Dr. Seuss car, and we had a bunch of money because it's Fiat, and we had a lot of fun shooting. And it's a spunky little car. I got to drive it around sometimes. My favorite time on set is when I get to drive, because we don't always have enough drivers. So sometimes they need an extra driver, and I'm well insured because I'm the producer and blah blah blah. So sometimes I get to drive the cars and drive them kind of fast, which is fun.
That would be fun. Exactly.
We
So,
shot a NASCAR a couple months ago. That was fun. Shot a NASCAR truck.
What's a NASCAR truck?
Well, they have the typical NASCAR races that have been around forever. The formula racing, the stock car racing, and they have a truck series that goes along with it. So we shoot a lot of Ram stuff, and Ram decided that they were going to build a race truck, and also coincided with the release of the news that they're putting the Hemi back in their trucks. And so we did this big show at a real NASCAR event right before they started the race, where we drove a NASCAR truck onto a platform, and then it did donuts on the platform while the truck was pulling it along in front of the whole NASCAR crowd with fireworks and t-shirt cannons and all the things. And that was a lot of fun to see those NASCAR trucks go fast, because they're so loud that when you turn them on, you thought like the world ended. You know what I mean? So it was kind of fun.
So they're pickup
So,
trucks, basically the pickup truck, right? As well.
Yeah, so stock car racing is basically a race series where all the teams have to use a version of a car that's available to the public. So, Chevy's got a car, Ford's got a car, and they're all based off the trucks or off the consumer cars, and then they have a truck series. So they have to be based off of a truck that's available to people. And obviously they mod them up and they lower them and they put other things in them, but it makes it so everyone's got the same kind of like starting level, and it's more about the drivers than it is about the car.
So like the engine has to be the engine. They can't,
Exactly.
add.
It's the engine that's in, they all have mods and they all have things, but it's essentially, the frame and the building blocks of the engine are the stock.
so Ben, for young aspiring filmmakers, what's one piece of advice that you would give them to break into the commercial industry, film industry?
That's a tough question because I could talk for days about how the best way to get into what I'm doing right now is, but who knows if my job even exists in 5 years. So I don't know. The best thing to do is to do. So if you're interested in being in commercials, go get a job as a production assistant on a commercial and meet people and talk to people and do your job. I think is the most important thing, because in a freelance industry, everyone's always looking for the next person to be their production assistant or to be their craft person or to be their cinematographer or to be their whatever. And their normal people might be booked. So being the last person on somebody's mind or reminding people that you exist in a really friendly way, um, because you never know when the day that I'm like, oh, all of my PAs are gone. Who am I gonna call? Oh yeah, I'm gonna call that person that hit me up 3 times in a really nice way to see if I had any work. So part of it's about being good at what you do, and the other part about it is being personable and being available. And if you pay attention on set and you do your job and you don't distract everybody, then you'll climb the ranks, especially if you know what you want to do.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Any exciting projects on the horizon other beyond car commercials and that sort of business you could tell us about?
Beyond car commercials?
Well, not beyond, but
In addition to,
in addition to, or writing a novel, something like that.
Um, I'm just trying to keep this boat floating.
Yeah, we'll get to that boat in a minute. So for our, you asked the number.
okay.
question.
So
Final
for
question.
our viewers, do you have, who are fascinated with and want to see what you've done in the past and so forth? Where can they find your work online? Do you have a website, Instagram, we could check out?
Yeah, I haven't been keeping up on any of my port stuff in the last few years because it's like, the jobs keep coming. I can't take enough of them right now.
Yeah.
So, um, I haven't really put together a newer port just because I don't need it. But that doesn't mean, I can't throw you guys some links to some things and you can throw up some footage.
Yeah, could you do that? That'd be great.
Yeah,
We'll put it on the outrun.
yeah.
So, Ben, this has been a wonderful interview. But to tell us, as Pricilla alluded to once, about your boat and what was your thought process of getting it's a catamaran, right?
Correct. I live on a 36-foot catamaran with my dog and my girl, and basically I travel up and down the eastern seaboard depending on where the weather is, and I work remotely from the boat. So, pre-COVID, most production work for commercials was done in a production office. So once the job was awarded, we'd have an office rented for 2 or 3 weeks, and we'd work out of that. Um, Once COVID happened, that wasn't legal. So everyone was working from home until the shoot. And that worked in a lot of ways so well that not very many companies went back to, or at least right away, went back to the in-office model. So after COVID, when COVID was all over, I was still working out of my home office. And so even though I lived in the same city as everyone I was working with, I wouldn't really even see them until game day. So my parents are sailors. They retired. Have been living full time on their boat for 9 seasons, and uh, I visit them a lot. I have a passion for sailing, so I spoke with my bosses and said, if I was to do this, if I was to work remotely from the boat and travel to shoots and work as a local in Los Angeles, would that be acceptable? And they said, yeah, let's give it a try. So I'm about a year into doing this. I have Starlink on the boat, so pretty much anywhere I go, I'm talking to you guys on Starlink right now, satellite internet. And yeah, I mean it's tricky. There's a lot to do on a boat, anyways, and then you mix in a full-time job and traveling, and it can be a lot to do, but it seems to be going pretty well.
It must be an easy way to sort of get your head out of your job and do something like sailing, and
Sure.
so they don't bring it home all the time.
So, do you have any plans to sail someplace and take a break, a vacation, and where would you like to go?
I don't necessarily need to take a vacation, but it'd be more like, we have these kind of routes planned. So we'll be in New England until mid-October. We've visited the Narragansett Bay, Martha's Vineyard. We'll do Nantucket. We'll do Cape Cod. And then, mid-October, we'll start heading south and visit all the major cities again on the eastern seaboard. We do the Chesapeake Bay, Annapolis, we do North Carolina, like Beaufort. We saw a lot of really amazing cities on the way up in the fall or in the spring. And going down in the fall, we plan to spend more time going south and spend a week in the city and a week in that city. So with the maybe final destination being the Bahamas.
Yeah, where are you now? Where's your boat now? Where are you now?
Right now we're in Martha's Vineyard, floating in Lagoon Pond in Vineyard Haven.
How about that?
Lovely, lovely.
Yeah. I was just there. I was just on the vineyard a while back, but that's interesting. I think it was your grandparents had a place on the vineyard in Vineyard Haven,
Yep.
didn't they?
Correct. Yeah, my mother's parents.
So
So I spent a lot of summers here.
yeah. Well, the only Ames that's been in your business was this relative of mine named Oliver Philly, and he got into your business because he happened to be on the beach scene in Jaws when they were filming Jaws, and he got to. So if you watch the opening of Jaws, you can see Patrick Philly yucking it up with his girlfriend on the beach. And he gets up. He has a bit of a role, not a speaking role, but he became great friends with the assistant director, which I guess is the key person in a position like that to get to know. And they liked him, and so he said, "You got any work? I'm just graduating from college next year." And they said, "Come on down to New York," and he got a job. Woody Allen was filming a lot of films in those days. A lot of them were in New York. So his entry-level job was to make sure the restaurant would be ready to go at 8 in the morning to film something, and would arrange all his production
Locations.
locations and all that sort of stuff. So he he had quite a good run because he became one of the go-to guys in New York City who could get things done. And
Yeah.
pay everybody the right amount that they were looking for and all that sort of stuff.
So that's a relative of yours?
Yeah, it's my grandmother. My grandmother Ames her name was Philly, and this was her brother's grandson. So that's sort of interesting. So the 50th anniversary of Jaws, which was recent, he became sort of a rock star, you know. So it was sort of a come to Jesus moment for him. This was the changing of his life, and he sort of knew it, so he took advantage of it. So we're getting close to the end here, Pricilla.
Yeah, we are. So is your vision for the future to continue making commercials for automobiles, or do you see some other possibility in your future?
Well, I think I've always been a pretty adventurous person. I try not to plan too far ahead. So I think everything's working pretty well right now. But who knows what the future will hold?
Yeah.
Also, who knows how long car commercials will be made by human beings? So I'm trying not to plan too far ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, well, someone has to own the company that makes the AI commercials about cars, right?
It's true. It's true.
Could be
If
you.
there was a position that might be safe, it's producer.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Someone's got to sign for it. So
Yeah.
Well, Ben, we want to thank you so much. What an interesting interview. You have so much talent and expertise. We really appreciate your sharing it with us today.
Hey, no problem. I always appreciate being on the Film Connection.
Thank you, and
as a former winner in the Hockomock Film Festival many years ago,
Yeah, that's right.
Bill founded with a couple other guys,
including your dad.
We feel that you got your start with us.
That's right. And we just interviewed John Cortizo, who was in the film.
Yeah, he was in the Hockomock Film Festival.
And he was nominated for an Emmy. So
there you go.
Our first Emmy I believe, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah, so it's good. Yeah. Well, enough from us. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to hearing more about your interesting career. We'll get you on another year or so, and maybe we can get some more questions and answers. So.
Yes, thanks
Sounds
again.
good.
And all the best. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Status report.
Radar returns all clear. Everything's progressing on schedule, sir.
Shepard, ears on?
I feel the storm is coming.
Read you loud and clear, boss.
Excellent. We'll send in some escorts for the final approach.
Well, it was getting a little lonely, I hear.
That's about to change, Shepard.
Vectoring to you now.
Rebel on the way.
Warlock.
Care to join us?
Miss the fun? Never. Rolling out.
Entering the formation now.
This is the new Ram RHO. So go on, tear it up.
Tear it up. This truck.
Hello, Mr. Beckham. Your new car is ready. As requested, it's been delivered on the 7th floor. Have a great evening.
Easy FM. Hope you got your beauty sleep and you're ready for another gorgeous day in the Magic City.